for today's experiment, we will be looking at the transfer of heat. We're going to have two different coloured jars, one filled with hot water and the other with cold, and two different coloured food dyes. And when we put them on top of each other, we'll be looking at what will happen to the water. So does anyone have any predictions about what will happen to the colour or temperature of the water?
The water would change, just turn green because you're mixing the two colours together. So it just stay the same. It's like just mixed together. It's all still water, so I thought it would be the same.
I think it will all get cold.
Yeah, it all has like a similar temperature.
Yeah.
One beaker, two more of the same size. Would you call these thermometers? Yeah. Mercury inside. Food colorings got blue and red. Tongs, stirrer, paper towels, some cards.
The cold temperature is 26 degrees and the hot water is 53 degrees.
So has any of this surprised anyone, the results we've gotten so far?
Yeah, I thought that both sides would go purple.
I didn't think the red would be strong enough to change it to purple. So I was surprised that it has gone the colours it has, and even the top blue is starting to change a lot more now too.
Yeah.
I was surprised that you could actually see movement inside the bottles of like water moving down and up. You could kind of see markings of that within the bottles.
What about the colour? Is anyone shocked at the colour that it's turned?
We predicted more that the bottom bottle would turn purple, but we didn't have many predictions on the top jar. We just kind of, I guess, assumed that it would just mix be the same.
Could you make the argument that these are never an accurate reading of the temperature? This is the output bit here.
39.
Yeah, 39 and
35?
Alright, so does anyone have any ideas on why the red water, the hot water, is staying on top?
Well, in the first experiment, the red wanted to move up, and in this scenario, the red is already in the top. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Hot water does rise, so it makes sense that it would stay up.
So the end results for the temperature, the hot water is at 48 degrees and the cold water is at 26 degrees. What did everyone see in the convection of the heat today, in the experiment?
So for me,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, for me, it was the changing of temperatures as the water moved. I was
Begin note, Charli, as the teacher, we didn't get to the final hypothesis, facilitating the rest of the conversation.
What did everyone see in the convection of the heat today, in the experiment?
For me, it was the changing of temperatures as the water moved. I was surprised that the coloured water was able to filter through on the bottle the way it did. So I was actually really quite surprised to see the blue going through the red. I thought being water and water, we wouldn't have seen any difference. We would have just seen a merge of colours together. So that was very surprising for me.
I noticed the pattern of the hot water wanting to be at the top and the cold water wanting to be at the bottom. So when we had it inverted and the cold was at the top and the hot was at the bottom, they wanted to change over. But when we had it that the hot water was at the top and the cold was at the bottom, they were happy to stay where they were. I know that we did observe today convection, which is the transfer of heat through a fluid, liquid or gas, caused by molecular motion, which is a fun word. Or like you said, Charli, the convection current.
I like that hot water has a less density than cold water.
Yeah, I had no idea. Yeah.
I just assumed that cold water would be lighter.
I didn't realise that when they were put on top of each other that the cold would sink and the hot would rise.
Yeah.
Like I figured maybe they just like mixed but had no scientific reasoning behind it.
So evaluate.
just asking them what they thought of the experiment and why they thought this happened. So for them to reflect on their hypothesis of what they thought was going to happen. Were they disappointed? Were they impressed? Like getting them to use those words to explain what they saw, and instead of just inferring it, they're telling us their direct observations.
Yeah, I think that reflection is very important, especially going from what they predicted to then their actual observations, and then creating that final hypothesis out of that and coming to a different, potentially different conclusion that's more aligned with the CDSU.